It's Wayne and Jess for breakfast. And Jess, it's time to talk all things law.
And Priala Legal is a boutique property law firm on the northern end of the Gold Coast, and the principal, Despina Priala, has practiced for over 25 years with settlements like the iconic Q1 Tower and construction of several other local towers, not to mention her legal expertise assisting developers, real estate agents and buyers both here and overseas. She joins us each week to give us some general advice on all the latest hot topics. Good morning to our Radio 97 resident lawyer, Despina.
Good morning, Jess. Good morning, Wayne.
Good morning, Despina. Well, we have a couple of very interesting topics to talk about. Not sure whether we're going to be able to fit them in the time we have.
I know, we have a short time every week, but we try and do the best we can to give the listeners all of the highlights, so that, of course, if they want any more information, they can call here or at the station, or they can call our office. But yes, we will try and fit it in as best as we can.
Firstly, this is horrifying to me personally, but Hannah Clarke, the horrifying attack of her ex-husband who took the lives of not only her but the children and then his own. He's no longer with us. However, his son, who was estranged from him, now wants to make a claim on Hannah's estate.
It's a story that's been published this week, and it is a tragic story, and by no means something that perhaps we would like to talk about. But the reason I'm raising it is because from a legal point of view, if people were wondering how could this be, how could this particular son of this man make a claim, I wanted to let the listeners know from a legal point of view how it could be and how he is able to do this, putting aside maybe perhaps whether it's right or it's wrong, and morally whether it's right or it's wrong, purely from a clinical point of view and a legal point of view, how he can do this and the basis for that.
Well, let's start right from the beginning. Does he have? Is it possible for him to lodge this action?
It is. So he, as I understand it, he is the stepson of the late Hannah Clarke. And stepsons in Queensland under the Succession Act fall within the three classes of claimants. So we can talk about that so listeners can understand. And it is similar in New South Wales with some variations. So under the Succession Act in Queensland, which governs these types of claims, and they're called family provision applications, a claim is made or can be made by three different classes of people. So we talk about spouses, okay, and that can include ex-spouses if they were being financially maintained by the deceased at the time of death, which has to be established, of course. Then the second class of people are children. So children of the deceased. Now, it's an interesting area, and it is quite clearly defined in the Act to mean your child, your stepchild, or your adopted child. So those three different categories are included in the definition of child. And the third category is for those claimants that don't fall within those two other categories, but they are classed as dependents. So someone who has been financially maintained and supported by the deceased at the time of their death, which of course has to be established in their claim.
Now, the story suggests that we're talking as much as $3.6 million here, so it's a fairly sizable estate. So there's a lot at stake here, isn't there? There's
a lot. So I have not read the claim or the affidavit material yet that's been filed by this stepson just last week on the 16th of November. So I have seen that filed in the Supreme Court on the registry, and I haven't obtained a copy. So without reading it, I can't attest to all the specifics, but what I understand so far is that the estate of Hannah Clarke has quite a significant amount of assets now because there has been a payout of insurance policies, right? So there, I believe there were two insurance policies, one on her life and one on the estranged partner that committed this particular heinous act on her and her children. So there has been a payout apparently to the estate. Now, I understand further that the parents of Hannah Clarke are administering the estate, and ordinarily, being, I believe, the only family left, they would stand to inherit. Now, this particular son is classed as a stepson, so he is now making a claim against Hannah Clarke's estate. So it's been reported that he didn't receive anything from his own father's estate, the person who committed the act, so he's now making a claim against Hannah Clarke's estate as a stepson.
So the fact that he's, as I understand it, it's been reported that he is in fact the estranged son of the man who killed Hannah Clarke. Does that make any difference at all? The fact that he probably had no necessarily a lot of contact with the family?
That's a really, really, really good question. So and we look after a lot of people that make claims, or we might be on the other side where executors have to be the recipient of these claims, and then we have to deal with the claims being made. So it's a really good question because the type of relationship is considered by the court as part of the claim. So the critical issue, though, for the purposes of the Act is what was the relationship between the claimant and the deceased at the time of the deceased's death. So if the person was still considered a stepson at the time of death, they are entitled to claim. So, say in contrast, had Hannah and her estranged partner been formally divorced, so that relationship had completely severed, and the relationship of stepson really wasn't in the picture, or it ceased at the time of death, that would remove.
If it was fractured.
It was fractured, so it would possibly remove his right to make a claim. So because it was not severed or ceased, it had not ceased at the time of death. Yes, that's right, and that's what the Act provides. So as we said before, look, a terrible tragedy, of course, and whether it's right or wrong for this person to make a claim, and I probably shouldn't pass that opinion because we don't know all the facts and circumstances, it does give him a right to make a claim. And he has put forward, apparently it's been published so far, that his financial position is quite destitute. So the court also looks at the financial position of the claimant versus other people in the family. And that's really critical for the court. And does get taken into account. So he has claimed, apparently, I don't have anything. I'm financially poor. I don't have any money. I didn't get anything from my father's estate. Now I want to claim. And the parents, as he apparently has reported, they're very wealthy, supposedly. So, right or wrong again, it's not very nice to hear that, I suppose you could say. But he does have a right to make that claim.
He's in his early 20s, and they use the term suing those parents.
Well, he's not suing the parents personally. What he's doing is he's making a claim against the estate, and the parents, as I understand, will be the executors or administrators of the estate, and they will have to deal with this claim now, and it could go on for several months. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens.
And what could their defence be? Could they claim at all? I know they don't fall under those three. You gave us the three-tiered. So is there any way they can claim compensation for this?
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. The Act that I talked about before, the Succession Act, really doesn't allow for that. So we might see some interesting replies countered to his claim in terms of perhaps psychological damage that the parents have suffered as a result. Depends on the advice that they're going to receive, but they might be able to counter that to perhaps minimise or reduce the amount that this particular person might be entitled to at the end of the day, because he is the rightful claimant, and so far we don't know of any other entitled claimants, so he might get the whole lot. So we just don't know how it's going to play out. So we'll watch the case really carefully, and we can report on that case. But yeah, it's an interesting one.
Unbelievable.
So once again, it has a lot to do with his circumstances as well. That is the stepson of
now
of
living
Hannah
with his own biological mother and the stepfather there, living under their roof.
Yeah, well, that's right. So as I said, taking a very clinical look at the case, he's got a right to make a claim. We've said that he's entitled under the Act. Morally, we can all, give our opinions about that, and whether or not he's entitled, he may very well receive the whole lot. We just don't know what the parents are going to come back with in terms of their arguments. It could be that they're also going to mention, well, how did this come about? We've only received the proceeds because Hannah was killed, and who did that was this particular person, and then killed the children and killed himself, and really the proceeds are only come about because of that. So why should the stepson be entitled to receive? But as I said, the claim is made under the Succession Act, and he has a right to make a claim. Clinically, looking at it from that point of view, 100%. So
All right, look, that is going to be a fascinating story. There's more to come, and undoubtedly we will hear from you as that case develops. This is Talking Law on Radio 97, and Despina Priala is with us every Thursday morning. If you have a question to do with the law, you're more than welcome to send us to us via email, breakfast